Welcome to The Performance Code, the official podcast of PCodeNation.com and the Performance Code community. Tune in each week as top performers and fitness experts share their tactics and strategies to get you on the fast track to achieving maximum results. And now, your host, Justin Schollard.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Justin Schollard here. You're listening to the Performance Code podcast, episode number 8. Well, it's a beautiful day here in Los Angeles, California. In fact, tonight it's a Friday. Game 4 of the Golden State Warriors and the Cavaliers tonight. So I plan on tuning in on that in about an hour and a half. Before I do that, I'm going to lay it down real quick, guys. So we're going to talk about functional movement, specifically what it is. We've all heard of, trained functional movement, functional exercise, functional bodybuilding. There's so many things around it now. It's becoming much more mainstream. And so I thought I'd take this opportunity to just dive deep into it and sort of at least give my opinion and my experience with functional movement and really why I think you need to be doing it, because I do tend to agree that it's a very important thing to incorporate into your routine. Before we do, guys, I've just started a new program, and basically what it is, it's a step above my academy. So for those of you who don't know, I have an academy online. It's through an app, functional strength and conditioning training. You bring the app with you to the gym and you just follow along. It's a great program. I like it. So what I've done is I've kind of enhanced it to a little bit more personal. So now you have more contact with me. So a sort of a cut above now is a monthly phone call with me and a weekly email. So it all starts with just a free phone call. I'll have a link in the show notes, and I'll have also a link on the website. So if you go to PCodeNation.com, I'll put the link where you can actually book a free 30-minute phone call with me. And this is just going to be a strategy session. We're just going to chat, see where you're at with everything, talk about what your goals are, what your struggles are, and really just hash it out, just have a little time, create a little space to see if not only would it be a good fit for us to work together, but, more importantly, like whether we work together or not, what's getting in your way? Why are you not seeing results? Maybe you go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week, but you're just not seeing the results that you thought you should have, before you started a routine of that many days per week. And it's very common. So I've seen it all, guys, and I think I could probably help. So feel free to head on over to PCodeNation.com and book a call with me. Let's chat. Let's get to know each other. No strings attached. If you like what you hear, you want to work together, great. Otherwise, it'd be cool to talk to my audience. I think that's enough value for me to want to do it, whether or not you come on board. So let's talk about functional movement, guys. So what is it, right? Well, essentially, functional movement means that you're using more than one joint, right? So as opposed to isolation movements where I'm just using a single joint and I'm isolating a single muscle. And by the way, this is not a knock on isolation. There is tons of value. There's tons of benefits to doing isolation work. But the reality is that functional movement tends to be a little bit more difficult, right? We have to kind of get our head in the game before we go in and we do some heavy back squats or we do some heavy bench press or some deadlifts, things that require more of a system as opposed to an isolated part of the body. If I do a back squat, not only am I bracing the movement with my core, I am initiating the movement with my hips, but then I also have to bend my knees and my ankles are moving as well. It's much more holistic in that way, and therefore requires much more brain power. It recruits a higher level of muscle fibers to make that lift happen. And then not to mention, it actually creates a greater hormonal response. So basically, if I get under a heavy barbell and I'm doing some heavy back squats, my central nervous system is going to have to start releasing more testosterone or more growth hormone to get through a tougher workout. Where conversely, if you were sitting on, let's just say, a knee extension or you're doing hamstring curls, which there's a place for that. I'm not saying we shouldn't ever entertain isolation lifts, but what I'm saying is it's not a stretch of the imagination to picture ourselves sitting on a knee extension machine, hammering out knee extensions. It's not quite the intensity level that you would get from deadlifts or squats. So because of that higher level of intensity, we're just going to recruit more muscle fibers. We're going to release more hormones, and we're going to have a greater adaptational response overall. That's one of the reasons why functional movement, I think, it at least needs to be incorporated in every workout. It doesn't need to be the entire thing. I'm not going to say we have to all be just functional movement junkies and everything needs to be functional and that's all there is to it. Because, listen, some of us want to put on some size. I get it, myself included, right? If I didn't do tricep pushdowns, lateral raises, and bicep curls, I personally genetically do not have the muscle mass in my arms where just doing pull-ups and push-ups would give me that nice filled out look. I kind of have to do those isolation lifts. And I'm sure I'm not alone out there. In fact, I know it. So we at least need to incorporate functional lifts sometimes into our workout routine. Another reason why I like functional movements, guys, is because it connects the mind to the body. We should always be connected to our bodies, no matter what exercise we're doing, during the warm-ups, during the cool-downs, during the isolation, the heavy compound, whatever exercise we're doing, even if that includes just leaning over to pick up our dog or a bag off the floor, we always need to be aware of our body. But there's something about recruiting more than one joint and therefore the joining muscle groups that just makes us focus on what we're doing, right? We have to kind of pay a little bit more attention or else we might, run the risk of hurting ourselves. And so that fear of hurting ourselves with these heavier compound lifts kind of make us pay a little bit more attention, which then creates a stronger mind-body connection, which just makes us a better athlete overall, which kind of brings me to my next key point and why I think functional movements are so great is that it's just more athletic. And I think the quote that the sum is greater than its parts works perfectly here. When you picture an athlete, basketball player, football player, mixed martial artist, like whatever it is, gymnast, right? You don't imagine them isolating one body part at a time, do you? No, we picture their bodies moving in their entirety. We picture a sprint. We picture a jump. We picture throwing a ball where it is a system of systems working to make that action happen. When you break everything down into its parts and you train its parts individually, it doesn't necessarily translate into more athleticism and the system working better as a whole. Now, the caveat here would, of course, would be if we're rehabbing an injury, right? So let's just say you have to rehab your knee or you have to rehab your shoulder. Well, in that case, yeah, maybe some isolation movements are called for and probably more appropriate than trying to bear too much load on the system while you're rehabbing it. But assuming we're all healthy, I think that when we train our bodies with full range of motion in compound lifts, it makes us more athletic. It gives us more spatial awareness of how our bodies are moving. And it just kind of creates a more balanced and proportional strength level throughout. Okay. So that's sort of my 2 cents on why I think everyone needs to incorporate functional movements into their routine. And then I'm just going to give you guys sort of a list here of my top 3 functional movements that I do pretty regularly that always kind of get me worked up. Number 1 is going to have to be the thruster. The thruster is just one of those exercises that, including nothing else, right? If you just have, let's say you have 15 minutes and you just need to get a quick, tough workout in, you warm up for 5 and you could do 10 thrusters every minute on the minute for 10 minutes. And you will be totally gassed. And all a thruster is, it's a front squat. You can do it with barbells. You can do it with dumbbells, all the way down to an overhead press. So you literally just put the weights on your shoulders in the front position, not in your back, but in the front rack. You drop all the way down into a full squat, and then you drive all the way up and press the weight as you drive up to the back of your head, right? So you go from a squat to an overhead press. You can load it up as heavy or as light as you want. Do as low or as high reps as you'd like, whatever your specific goal is for that training session. But I mean, as a standalone movement, the thing is unstoppable. Strength, coordination, you can go lighter and do higher reps, and all of a sudden now it's conditioning, mental toughness, you name it. The thruster for me really sort of seals the deal as far as one of those movements that anybody can do, right? There's not a high skill level, but the intensity is through the roof. Number 2 would have to be the deadlift. I think the deadlift, there's always sort of the great debate between what's more beneficial, the squat or the deadlift. And although I love my squats, I think Gray Cook from Functional Movement Systems says it best is that, we should maintain the squat but really we should train the deadlift. And the reason is because could you imagine a more practical movement than just bending over to pick something off the ground? I mean, if there is ever something that human beings have been doing since the beginning of time, it's leaning over at the waist, picking something off the ground and standing back up again. And that is a deadlift, right? So like I said earlier, whether we're talking about, a pen off the floor, a bag of groceries, a dog, a child, a 300-pound barbell, it's the same thing. Mastering the deadlift is probably going to be your best bet to prevent back injuries. Now, doing the deadlift wrong is going to be your best bet to injure your back. But that's life, right? It's a double-edged sword. You get it right, you pay attention, you mobilize your hips, you train it. It's going to be the most beneficial lift that you could ever do in your life. That has the most, functional applicability in every day-to-day life. Number 1, thruster. Number 2, deadlift. Number 3, the burpee. Now that might cut you off guard a little bit, right? Why would I say burpee? That's just kind of like a evil torture device that boot camp and CrossFit coaches like to punish their classes with, right? But I mean, it's not all about strength and it's not all about athleticism. It's the combination. And something about the burpee, for me, has always been a great benchmark to my fitness level. So in other words, if I drop down and do 10 burpees as quickly as I possibly can, which for those of you who don't know, burpee is basically you're just dropping down to the ground, you're hitting your chest to the deck, you're springing back up to your feet, and then jumping a little bit in the air with your arms over your head. And you just kind of repeat that. Drop down, push up, kick your feet out, push up, kick your feet back in, jump up, and then clap your hands over your head. And there's just something about it where I can kind of gauge my athleticism at that moment. I can take like a snapshot of my conditioning and my athleticism by how rough 10 burpees feel. 10, 20, 30, however many I end up doing. When I'm really in shape, when I'm really doing well with everything, they're like nothing. Right? I can just sit there and knock them out like no one's business. When I'm maybe taking my eye off the ball, which we all do here and there, all of a sudden 10 feels real rough. It's always a good metric for me to see kind of where I'm at with everything. So those are my top 3 functional movements. And I guess the benefit, another benefit of the burpee is it's just you driving yourself off the ground and then hurling yourself in the air. As far as being springy and athletic and light in your feet goes, that's sort of one of those things that we all should be proficient at. It's just being able to just move our own body weight through space efficiently. And the burpee kind of really is a great way of training that system. So thrusters, deadlifts, and burpees. So there you go, guys. Maybe that's your workout. Let's do that. Why don't I challenge you guys to a workout this week and let me know how it goes. You can hop on over to the Facebook page, open to everybody, P-Code Nation Performance Code Facebook group, and let me know what your scores are, guys. Hop on over there and let's see how you did. So here's the workout. We'll go 15 thrusters, 10 deadlifts, and 5 burpees. Give me 5 rounds of that. You can pick the weight. So if you do finish that workout, head on over to the Facebook group, The Performance Code. Leave a comment. Tell us how much weight you used and what your time was for 5 rounds of 15 thrusters, 10 deadlifts, and 5 burpees. And of course, guys, if you head on over to my YouTube page, I have a complete breakdown of each one of these movements. So it's just Performance Code over on YouTube. And then I have some videos to walk you through exactly how to do these movements. So you got everything you need. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. Remember, I want to encourage you to head on over to pcodenation.com and book a call with me, man. Let's chat. Let's see where you're at with everything. I'm happy to help. All right, guys. Until next time. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to The Performance Code, the official podcast of pcodenation.com with your host, Justin Schollard, online at pcodenation.com. We'll catch you next time.